I married a monster on a Tuesday. Not metaphorically. Not in the he left dishes in the sink way. I mean, I stood in a Gothic fortress, said vows in a language I didn't understand, and married an actual werewolf king who had no idea I was human. And here's the thing nobody tells you about accidentally becoming queen of a supernatural kingdom. The wedding night is when things get really complicated. My name is Lorelei Ashford. I'm 17. 3 days ago, I was shelving books in my father's dyeing shop in a dying town. Now I'm wearing a crown I can't take off, sleeping next to a man, well, wolf, who could kill me with one bite, and racing against time to figure out who set us both up to die. Because someone did. Someone powerful. Someone close. And they're probably listening to me right now. So buckle up. This is the story of how I went from nobody to queen, from human to something else entirely. And how I discovered that the scariest monsters aren't always the ones with fangs. Sometimes they're the ones who smile at you across the breakfast table. If you want to know how I survive what happens next, and trust me, you need to hear this, hit that like button right now, smash subscribe so you don't miss a single second of this nightmare, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about monsters, magic, and what it really means to be human. Don't make me face this alone. Subscribe. Now, let's do this together. Chapter 1. 3 days before I married a monster, I watched my father die. Not all at once, not dramatically, just slowly, breath by painful breath, in a hospital bed that smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. His skin had gone the color of old newspaper, gray and thin, like you could see through it if you held it up to the light. Each breath rattled in his chest like coins in an empty jar. 3 days, the doctor had said, not even looking at me. Maybe 4 if he's lucky. Lucky. I wanted to laugh. We'd been out of luck for years, since Mom left, since the bookshop started failing, since the bank started sending those letters with the red stamps. Now we were out of everything. Money, time, hope. I was holding Dad's hand when the courier arrived. She didn't knock, didn't announce herself, just appeared in the doorway like smoke taking shape, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than our mortgage. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, and when she looked at me, I felt something cold slide down my spine. Lorelei Ashford? Her voice was honey over broken glass. I nodded, unable to speak. She held out an envelope. Blood-red wax seal. Heavy paper that whispered wealth with every movement. For you. From a benefactor who wishes to help with your situation. My fingers trembled as I took it. The paper felt warm. Alive. What situation? Read it. You have until midnight to decide. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Choose wisely, Miss Ashford. Some doors only open once. Then she was gone. Just gone. No footsteps, no goodbye. Like she'd never been there at all. I should have run, should have thrown the letter in the trash and never looked back. But Dad gasped then, a horrible wet sound, and the machines started beeping faster, and the nurse rushed in, and all I could think was 3 days, maybe 4. I opened the letter. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. The kind you see in museums, not in real life. Miss Ashford, I understand you find yourself in difficult circumstances. Your father's medical bills, the debts, the shop. I can make it all disappear. In exchange, you need only agree to a marriage contract. 1 year of your life, and your father lives. He recovers fully, the debts vanish, and you walk away wealthy enough to never worry again. All you have to do is sign. The wedding is in 3 days. At the bottom, a line for my signature. A pen materialized in my hand. I don't know how. Don't know where it came from. It was just suddenly there. Heavy and warm and waiting. This is insane, I whispered to the empty room. Dad's breathing hitched again. The monitor screamed. The nurse called for the doctor. I signed. My tears fell on the ink, making it blur and run like blood. The paper glowed once, bright enough to hurt my eyes, then went still. Normal. Just a piece of paper in my shaking hands. I didn't read the fine print. Biggest mistake of my life. The next 3 days blurred together like watercolors in the rain. I remember the nurse telling me Dad had stabilized, miraculously, impossibly. I remember signing papers at the bank, watching numbers change on screens, debts disappearing like they'd never existed. I remember packing a bag, though I don't remember anyone telling me to. I remember getting into a car with tinted windows, driven by someone who never spoke. Then nothing, just darkness and the sensation of movement and the smell of pine and snow and something wild. When I woke up, I was in a room I'd never seen before, surrounded by women who wouldn't meet my eyes. They dressed me in silence. The gown was ivory and gold, heavy with embroidery that looked like wolves running through forests. It smelled old, not musty, but ancient, like it had been waiting for centuries. The fabric whispered against my skin, and I swear I felt it move on its own, tightening and adjusting without anyone touching it. "Where am I?" My voice cracked. "Someone please talk to me." The women exchanged glances. One of them said something in a language I'd never heard. Guttural, rhythmic, nothing like any language I'd studied in school. Another shook her head sharply. I looked out the window. Mountains. Jagged peaks covered in snow, rising into a sky that seemed too dark, too full of stars. I'd never seen these mountains. Never been anywhere near mountains like these. "This isn't right!" Panic clawed up my throat. When did I get here? How long was I? A door opened. A woman entered, tall and severe, wearing robes that looked like they belonged in a medieval painting. Her eyes were amber. Not brown, not hazel, amber like a wolf's. "It is time," she said in perfect, accented English. Then she smiled, and I saw her teeth were too sharp. "Welcome to your wedding day, bride of the night-born." My legs went weak. This isn't a wedding. This is a kidnapping. "You signed the contract." "I didn't know." "That is not our concern." She gestured, and the attendants moved toward me. "Come, your groom is waiting. Do not shame him by being late." They pulled me forward. I could have fought, could have screamed, but what was the point? I'd signed something, made some kind of deal, and Dad was alive, wasn't he? The debts were gone. That was real, even if nothing else made sense. The doors opened onto a throne room that stole the breath from my lungs. Gothic didn't begin to cover it. Vaulted ceilings lost in shadow. Torches burning with flames that were too blue, too bright. Stone walls carved with scenes of wolves and battles and things I couldn't quite look at directly. And people, hundreds of them, filling the space, standing too still, too perfect, watching me with eyes that caught the light wrong. Have you ever walked into a room and known instantly that you're the only human? That prey instinct kicks in. Every hair on your body stands up. Your heart starts racing. Your brain screams run even though you can't see a threat. It's biological, primal. The thing your ancestors felt when they heard something moving in the darkness beyond the fire. I felt it now, in every cell of my body. I took a step onto the aisle. The crowd shifted. Their attention was physical, pressing against my skin like cold hands. I could hear them breathing in unison. Could smell something wild and sharp, like the forest after rain. I walked, one foot in front of the other. The aisle felt endless, like walking to my own execution. And then I saw him. Cassian Nightborn stood at the end of the aisle, and oh God. Oh no, this wasn't fair. He was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair that fell just past his collar and cheekbones that could cut glass. He wore a suit of midnight blue and silver and a crown of twisted metal that looked like thorns and moonlight. But it was his presence that hit me, the weight of him, the power that radiated off him in waves. This was a king. This was someone who commanded armies and ended lives with a word. And I was about to marry him. His eyes were dark, unreadable. He watched me approach with the stillness of a predator. I couldn't tell if he was angry or indifferent or something else entirely. I reached him, stopped. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clasp them together. Up close, I could see details, the sharp line of his jaw, the tiny scar above his left eyebrow, the way his throat moved when he swallowed. He smelled like winter and smoke and something underneath that made my head spin, something animal and dangerous. An officiant stepped forward, robes trailing, and began speaking in that same guttural language. The words rolled over me, meaningless and terrible, ancient, the kind of words that had weight, that changed reality when spoken. Cassian repeated something. His voice was deep, resonant, and I felt it in my chest like thunder. The officiant turned to me, expectant. I don't understand, I whispered. Cassian's jaw tightened. Repeat what he says, exactly as he says it. The officiant began again. I stumbled through the words, my tongue tripping over sounds no human mouth was meant to make. I could feel the power in them, could feel something building in the air around us. The torches flared higher. The crowd swayed. When I finished the last syllable, something clicked into place. I gasped. It felt like invisible chains wrapping around my ribs, around my wrists, around my throat. Not painful, just there, undeniable. Cassian's eyes widened. For just a second, his composure cracked. His nostrils flared. He went absolutely still, and his hand shot out to grip my arm, hard enough to bruise. He lifted my veil with his other hand, and I watched his expression change. Shock, confusion, then something that looked like horror. But his voice, when he spoke, was warm, almost gentle. Hello, wife. His hand was trembling where it gripped my arm. The feast was overwhelming. They led us to a high table overlooking a hall full of people who were definitely not human. The food was strange. Meats I couldn't identify. Fruits in colors that shouldn't exist. Wine that tasted like liquid moonlight and made my head feel light and strange. Cassian kept touching me, his hand on my back when I sat. His fingers intertwined with mine when someone toasted. His arm around my shoulders when a particularly loud group laughed. Protective or possessive, I couldn't tell which. Maybe both. I caught pieces of conversations, whispers that cut off when I turned my head. Wrong. How did she... human... kill them both? That last one made my blood freeze. I looked at Cassian, but he was staring straight ahead, jaw tight, hand gripping his wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. I tried to eat. Failed. Picked up a fork and immediately dropped it because it was too heavy, made of metal I didn't recognize. A woman laughed, sharp, cruel. I felt my face burn. Cassian leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. Ignore them, Here. He picked up a smaller fork, placed it in my hand. Use this. His kindness made it worse somehow, made the tears press harder against the backs of my eyes. Across the hall, I caught sight of a woman watching us. Beautiful in a way that was almost painful. Silver blonde hair, perfect features, wearing a dress of crimson silk. She was smiling. Something about that smile made my skin crawl. She raised her glass to me, a toast, or a threat. "Who is that?" I whispered. Cassian followed my gaze and went rigid. "Bryn, my cousin. Don't worry about her." But his voice said I should very much worry about her. The feast dragged on, hours. I lost track of time. The wine kept flowing, the laughter kept rising, and I felt more and more like a rabbit in a room full of wolves, which, I was starting to realize, might not be far from the truth. Finally, Cassian stood, pulled me up with him. The hall fell silent. "My bride is tired," he announced, his voice carried. "We retire for the evening." Cheers erupted. Someone howled, actually howled. The sound raised every hair on my body. Cassian's hand tightened on mine. He leaned down, his lips nearly touching my ear. "Don't leave my side tonight, no matter what you hear. Promise me." There was fear in his voice. Real fear. This powerful, terrifying man was afraid. "I promise," I whispered, not understanding, but knowing with absolute certainty that I meant it. He led me through corridors I'd never find again, upstairs that seemed to spiral forever, to a door carved with wolves and moons and symbols that hurt to look at directly. Our bedchamber, our wedding night. The room was beautiful. Massive bed with dark curtains, fireplace already burning, windows showing those impossible mountains under too many stars. But I barely saw any of it. Cassian closed the door and locked it. 3 locks, I counted. Then he moved to a side table and poured wine with hands that shook so badly the bottle rattled against the glass. "Cassian!" My voice came out steadier than I expected. "What aren't you telling me?" He stopped, went absolutely still. Then he turned, and his eyes caught the firelight, and they flashed gold. Not reflected light, not a trick. Gold, glowing, inhuman. "I'm not what you think I am," he said, and then he started to transform. Chapter 2. I'd never heard bones crack like that before. It started with his hands, the fingers elongating, joints popping with sounds like gunshots in the silent room. His shoulders hunched, muscles rippling beneath his shirt, the fabric straining and tearing. His face, God, his face! The bones shifted, reshaping, jaw extending as fangs pushed through his gums. His eyes blazed gold, so bright I could see them behind my eyelids when I blinked. And the sound? That wet, grinding, horrible sound of a body remaking itself. I screamed, scrambled backwards so fast I knocked over the wine table. Glass shattered. Red liquid spread across the stone floor like blood, and all I could think was, that's going to be me. That's going to be my blood. I'm going to die on my wedding night. "Stay back." My voice was raw, broken. "Please, please don't!" But even as I watched in horror, Cassian was fighting it, fighting himself. His whole body shook with the effort. The transformation stuttered, reversed, bones cracking again as they shifted back. He dropped to his knees, gasping, sweat pouring down his face. When he looked up, his eyes were dark again, human again. But his hands were still trembling, and I could see the points of fangs when he spoke. "You're human." His voice was hoarse, disbelieving. "You're human. How are you human?" I pressed myself against the wall, as far from him as I could get. "What are you?" "A werewolf. The werewolf king?" He stayed on his knees, hands visible, non-threatening. "But you, You shouldn't be here. You can't be here. Who arranged this marriage? The northern benefactor. The words tumbled out. They sent a letter. They said they'd save my father. I just had to marry someone for a year. I didn't know. There is no northern benefactor in my kingdom. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? No such entity exists. No such title. Cassian's face was white. Someone lied to you. Someone set this up. We stared at each other across the wreckage of the wine table. Both of us breathing hard. Both of us realizing the same terrible truth. We've been played, I whispered. Spectacularly. He ran a hand through his hair, and I could see it was still shaking. Listen to me carefully, Lorelei. A human marrying into the werewolf royal line is forbidden, punishable by death, for both parties. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. What? The marriage bond is sacred. It can't be undone without council approval, which they will never give. Not for this. He was speaking fast now, urgent, terrified. Someone wanted us dead. Someone arranged this whole thing, knowing exactly what would happen when the truth came out. But why? I'm nobody. I'm just a girl from a bookshop. And I'm the king, which means someone wants my throne. He stood slowly, carefully, then crossed the room with deliberate steps. No sudden movements, like approaching a frightened animal. Here's a fun fact. Werewolves can smell species, and you, unfortunately, smell like prey in a room full of predators. That's not fun at all. No, he agreed. It's really not. He sat down on the floor across from me, not close enough to touch, but close enough to talk. His eyes were kind, scared, but kind. I believe you, he said quietly. About your father, about the letter, about not knowing what you were walking into, and I'm sorry. But if we don't figure out who did this and why, we're both dead by week's end. Week's end? My voice cracked. That's 4 days. Tomorrow is the blood moon. It's a sacred time. The council will gather, and when they do, they'll discover what you are, what we are. He leaned forward, intensity burning in his dark eyes. We have 3 days, maybe 4, to investigate, to find evidence, to identify who set us up. That's all. I should have been crying, should have been screaming, but something else was happening, something strange and unexpected. My mind was clearing, sharpening. The same thing that happened when I had to reorganize the entire bookshop inventory in 3 days because the landlord was coming. The same thing that happened when Dad got sick and I had to learn medical billing and insurance and hospital bureaucracy overnight. I was good in a crisis. Always had been. The prophecy, I said suddenly. In the throne room, there were carvings, wolves and symbols. What do they mean? Cassian blinked. You saw those? Most humans can't even look at them directly. I'm full of surprises. I pushed myself to my feet. Show me. He led me to the wall near the window. Ancient carvings covered the stone, so old the edges had worn smooth. But I could make out the images. Wolves, moons, a figure that might have been human or might have been something else. The blood moon union, Cassian said, tracing the symbols with one finger. An ancient prophecy. It says that when a human and a wolf are joined under the blood moon, they will either save the kingdoms or destroy them. No middle ground. Save them how? It doesn't say. Prophecies never do. He turned to me. But someone clearly wants to test it, using us as lab rats. Or they want to trigger the destruction part. I studied the carvings, my practical mind clicking through possibilities. Either way, We're the experiment. A reluctant experiment that would very much like to survive. Agreed. I met his eyes. 3 days, you said. Fine. We investigate. We find who did this. We figure out what they want, and we stop them. You sound very certain. I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm also really, really angry. Someone used my dying father to manipulate me. Someone tried to kill us both. I want to know who, and I want to make them regret it. For the first time since the transformation, Cassian smiled, small but real. I think I'm starting to like you, Lorelei Ashford. Don't get attached. You might have to eat me later. I would never. Too soon for jokes? Much too soon. But he was almost laughing, and so was I, and it was absurd and terrible and somehow exactly what we both needed. We need help, he said. Someone we can trust. Someone who can protect you when I can't. Do you have someone like that? I have exactly one person like that. He opened the bedroom door and called down the hallway. Bryn, get up here. Minutes later, the beautiful blonde woman from the feast appeared. She leaned against the doorframe, taking in the broken glass, the wine stain, the two of us standing on opposite sides of the room like boxers between rounds. Well, she said, amusement dancing in her amber eyes. This looks cozy. Bryn, this is my wife. Lorelei, this is my cousin Bryn. Cassian gestured between us. Lorelei is human. Bryn's eyebrows shot up. No? Yes. A human queen. She started laughing, actually laughing, head thrown back, the sound bright and wild. Oh, this is the most fun I've had in decades. Who's trying to kill you? We don't know yet. Well, when you find out, can I watch? She pushed off the doorframe and circled me like a predator sizing up prey. She smells terrible, like flowers in fear. The council will sniff her out in seconds. Can you fix it? Maybe, probably. Bryn grinned. But it's going to be weird. 20 minutes later, I was submerged in a bathtub full of blue liquid that smelled like pine trees and rotting leaves. This is disgusting, I sputtered, trying not to get it in my mouth. This is survival, Bryn corrected, sitting on the edge of the tub. It's made from wolfsbane, mountain sage, and the tears of my enemies. Kidding about that last part, mostly. How long do I have to stay in here? Until you stop smelling like a human buffet. I sank deeper into the blue nightmare. I hate everything about this. Welcome to the supernatural world, tiny human. It only gets weirder. When I finally emerged, my skin had a faint blue tint that Bryn assured me would fade by morning. Cassian returned from checking the perimeter, took one look at me, and froze. You look like a blueberry. A sexy blueberry, Bryn offered. That doesn't help, Bryn. I'm blue, I said flatly. Very blue. He was trying not to smile, failing. If you laugh, I'll kill you. He laughed, actually laughed, warm and genuine. And despite everything, the terror, the danger, the blue skin, I found myself laughing too. Real laughter, the kind that makes your stomach hurt and your eyes water. Bryn watched us with an unreadable expression. Something flickered across her face, too quick to catch, too strange to name. Then it was gone, and she was smiling again. Get some sleep, she said. Tomorrow we investigate. Tonight, you need rest. She left. The door closed. Cassian and I stood in the suddenly quiet room. I'll take the floor, he said. Don't be ridiculous. The bed is enormous. We can share. Lorelei, I trust you. The words surprised me, but they were true. You could have killed me a dozen times already. You didn't. You won't. Now stop being noble and get some sleep. We have a conspiracy to unravel." The next day blurred together like a fever dream. Cassian and I moved through the fortress like ghosts, investigating, questioning, piecing together clues. He knew the territory. I knew how to think like an outsider. Together, we worked surprisingly well. I noticed things his wolf eyes missed, scuff marks on the floor that meant someone had moved furniture, inconsistencies in servant schedules, the way certain people wouldn't meet his gaze. He noticed things I couldn't, scents that were wrong, sounds that didn't belong, the subtle body language of people who were lying. We discovered burned documents in Elder Hadrian's quarters, financial records showing payments to unknown entities, meeting notes from secret council sessions that Cassian had never been informed about. "It can't be Hadrian," Cassian said, staring at the evidence. "He was my father's best friend. He held me when I was born. He taught me how to hunt, how to lead. It can't be him." "It's always the ones you trust most," I said quietly. "The ones close enough to hurt you." His hands clenched into fists. "If he's betrayed me, we'll deal with it. Together." I touched his arm, just briefly. "But we need more proof. We need to know why." We kept digging, kept searching, and slowly, carefully, we started to trust each other. Small touches, hands brushing when we passed in corridors, protective gestures, lingering looks that meant more than they should. By the second night, I was exhausted. We'd been going for nearly 20 hours straight. Cassian found me in the library, surrounded by ancient texts I couldn't read, crying from frustration and fear and the weight of everything. He sat down beside me without a word, pulled me against his chest. "Let me cry." I'm sorry," I hiccuped. "I'm not usually like this." "You're allowed to break down. You've been incredibly strong." "I don't feel strong. I feel terrified." "You make me feel alive," he said quietly. "For the first time in years, I feel something other than duty and responsibility. You make me want to fight, want to survive, want to—" He stopped. We were so close, too close. I could feel his breath on my face, could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Want to what?" I whispered. Instead of answering, he kissed me. It was nothing like I expected. Not gentle or tentative. Desperate, electric, terrifying, like falling and flying at the same time. His hand cupped my face, his fingers tangling in my hair. And I kissed him back like I was drowning, and he was air. We broke apart, breathing hard. "This is a terrible idea," he whispered against my lips. "The worst," I agreed. We kissed again, deeper this time, more real. His hands on my waist, my fingers gripping his shirt, and nothing else mattered. Not the danger, not the prophecy, not the fact that we'd known each other for 2 days. A sound in the hallway, footsteps. We sprang apart just as the library door opened. Bryn stood in the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, flat, cold. "The council has called an emergency meeting," she said. "They know. If you're as terrified as I am about what happens next, hit that like button, smash subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends." Chapter 3. The council chamber was a place designed to break your spirit before you even opened your mouth. Vaulted ceilings that disappeared into shadow. Walls carved with the faces of ancient kings, their stone eyes following your every movement. 6 thrones arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by a werewolf so old, so powerful, that the air around them seemed to bend. They didn't move, barely breathed, just sat there like statues carved from nightmare and moonlight. I was hidden in an observation alcove above the main floor. a narrow space behind carved screens that Cassian had shoved me into before we arrived. "Stay there," he'd ordered. "Don't move. Don't breathe loudly. Don't let them know you exist." But I could see everything, hear everything, the perfect, terrible vantage point. Cassian entered the chamber alone. I watched the man I was falling for become a king. It was terrifying and magnificent. He walked with his shoulders back, his head high, every inch of him radiating power and control. The crown on his head caught the torchlight, throwing sharp shadows across his face. He looked like the warrior kings from the carvings, untouchable, unbreakable. But I'd seen him laugh about my blue skin. I'd felt his hands shake when he kissed me. I knew the truth beneath the mask. "Council elders," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I come before you with grave accusations." "Speak, young king." That was Elder Corvina, a woman who looked like she'd been carved from ice and shadow, her white hair falling to her waist, her eyes pale as winter moons. Cassian turned to face one of the thrones. "Elder Hadrian, did you arrange my marriage to Lorelei Ashford?" Hadrian was a massive man, broad-shouldered and gray-haired, with scars crisscrossing his face like a roadmap of battles won. He'd seemed kind at the wedding feast, grandfatherly almost. Now he just looked tired. "Yes," he said simply. The chamber erupted, voices raised in shock and anger. I pressed myself further back into the shadows, my heart hammering. "Did you know she was human?" Cassian's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Yes." "Did you know that marrying a human is forbidden? Punishable by death?" "Yes." Cassian pulled documents from his jacket, the evidence we'd gathered, the burned records, the payment ledgers. "You manipulated us both. You lied to me, to the council, to save your life." Hadrian stood, and even the other elders leaned back. His power filled the room like a physical force. "Yes, I arranged it. Yes, I lied. But not to kill you, Cassian. To save you." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. "What are you talking about?" Cassian's voice was barely a whisper. Hadrian's shoulders slumped. When he spoke again, he sounded ancient. Broken. "Your parents weren't killed by zealots, Cassian. They were murdered. Poisoned with nightshade silver, a substance that passes through bloodlines, generation to generation, growing stronger with each year until it stops the heart." I felt the blood drain from my face. In my hiding spot, I gripped the screen so hard my knuckles went white. "No," Cassian breathed. "You were poisoned as a child. When they died, the poison transferred to you fully. You have 5 years to live, maybe less." Hadrian's eyes were wet. "The prophecy isn't a myth, Cassian. A human mate bond can cleanse the poison. It's the only cure that exists. I saved your life. Your father made me swear to protect you, and I have. I did." A gasp escaped my throat before I could stop it. I slammed my hand over my mouth, but Bryn, standing in the shadows beside my alcove, had already heard. Her hand shot out, clamping over mine, holding me silent. Her amber eyes met mine in the darkness. "Not yet," she mouthed. "Wait." Below, Cassian looked like he'd been struck. "You're telling me I'm dying? That you arranged this entire thing to cure you?" "Yes." Hadrian stepped forward, pleading. "The human mate bond creates a purification effect. Ancient magic, older than the kingdoms. It cleanses poison from the bloodline. Your marriage to Lorelei will save you." "But her father..." Cassian's voice was dangerously quiet. "How did you convince her to sign the contract?" Hadrian went very still. "Hadrian." It wasn't a question anymore. It was a command. What did you do to her father? I poisoned him. The words fell like stones into deep water. Nothing permanent. A wasting sickness, easily cured once she signed. I saved him when she agreed to the marriage. Rage exploded through me like wildfire. I lunged forward, ready to scream, to reveal myself, to tear that man apart with my bare hands. Bryn's arm wrapped around my waist, yanking me back. Her hand stayed clamped over my mouth, her grip iron strong. Not yet, she whispered in my ear. Wait, trust me. I was shaking, crying, but I stayed silent. In the chamber, Cassian looked ready to kill. You poisoned an innocent man to manipulate his daughter. You lied to me for my entire life. You... Hadrian. Elder Corvina's voice cut through the rage like a knife through silk. She hadn't moved, hadn't changed expression. But something in her tone made everyone freeze. How did you know about the cure? The archives, Hadrian said immediately. The royal texts, the texts Cassian's parents were studying when they died? Silence. The kind of silence that comes before lightning strikes. Corvina continued, her voice soft and relentless. The texts kept in the sealed vault. The texts only the ruling family can access. The texts that would have told you not only about the cure, but about the poison itself, how to make it, how to use it. Hadrian's face went white. You didn't just arrange the marriage, Corvina said. You killed Cassian's parents. You poisoned Cassian as a child so you could control the timeline. You manipulated the prophecy to control the throne. No. Hadrian was shaking his head, backing away. No, I was trying to save. I never meant. For what? Cassian's voice was ice and fire. Why? Why make me an orphan? Why poison me? Why manipulate us both? For what? Power? Corvina suggested. Control? Or perhaps something simpler? Perhaps you thought you'd be named regent, thought you'd rule through the boy king until he came of age. Except Cassian grew up too strong, too independent. So you needed a longer leash, a tighter chain. It wasn't like that. Hadrian's composure shattered. I loved them. I loved your father like a brother. I was trying to protect the bloodline, protect the kingdom. Who gave you the nightshade silver? Corvina's question was quiet, deadly. Who told you about the prophecy? Hadrian's mouth opened, closed. His eyes went wide with something that looked like fear. Answer me, Hadrian. Corvina's power pressed down on the room. Who? The word was torn from him, dragged out by alpha command, by power older and stronger than anything he could resist. Bryn, he gasped. It was Bryn. Time stopped. I was standing right next to her. Right next to Bryn, who'd protected me, who'd helped me, who'd made me laugh about being a blueberry. Right next to Bryn, whose hand was still clamped over my mouth. She let go, stepped away from me, and walked out of the shadows into the council chamber like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. She wasn't afraid. She was smiling. Finally, she said, I was getting bored. You know that feeling when you realize the person protecting you is actually the one trying to kill you? That moment when your brain tries to rewrite every interaction, every conversation, every smile? When you understand that you've been sleeping next to a viper who was just waiting for the right moment to strike? Yeah, that. Cassian stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Bryn? Hello, cousin. She moved like water, graceful and deadly, circling the chamber. Did you really think Hadrian came up with this plan himself? Sweet, loyal, stupid Hadrian? He can barely plan a hunting expedition. You killed my parents. Cassian's voice broke on the words. I did. Poisoned them slowly, carefully, Made it look like zealot assassination. Brilliant, really. She examined her nails. Then I poisoned you. Just enough. Just the right dose to give us time. Time for what? For you to fall in love with me, obviously. She laughed, bright and terrible. I've loved you for 20 years, Cassian, since we were children. I stood by your side through everything. Your parents' death, your coronation, your grief. I waited to be chosen. Bryn? But you never would choose me, would you? Not Bryn. Not the cousin with impure bloodlines. Not the girl who's loved you since before you understood what love meant. Her voice turned sharp, bitter. So I chose myself. She spread her arms, addressing the entire council now. I murdered the king and queen. I poisoned their son. I manipulated Hadrian into arranging a forbidden marriage. And when the little human dies, blamed on zealots naturally, I'll comfort the grieving king. The succession law is clear. In the absence of a viable heir, the throne passes to the closest alpha-blooded relative who has proven their devotion and strength. You were never going to choose me, Cassian. She turned back to him, and for just a second, I saw real pain in her eyes. So I chose myself. I chose power. I chose the throne, and I would have been a magnificent queen. Cassian looked destroyed, absolutely destroyed. This woman had been his best friend, his confidant, his family, and she'd been planning his death for decades. Guards, he said quietly, arrest her. Bryn laughed. Oh, Cassian, you really think I'm going alone? She shifted. The transformation was instant, violent, complete. One moment, a beautiful woman. The next, a massive gray wolf with scars crisscrossing her fur and eyes that burned with intelligent fury. She was huge, bigger than any wolf should be, all muscle and fang and ancient rage. Guards rushed in from the side doors. She cut through them like they were made of paper. Blood sprayed. Men screamed. She was heading straight for Cassian, teeth bared, ready to finish what she'd started 20 years ago. I made a choice. I ran from my hiding spot, feet pounding on stone, no plan, no weapon, just pure instinct screaming that I couldn't let her kill him. My hand grabbed a ceremonial blade from the altar as I passed, heavy, wickedly sharp, probably priceless. Cassian! I screamed and threw it. He caught it without looking, muscle memory and alpha reflexes. Turned to face Bryn with the blade raised, but my eyes caught on something else. The altar. Ancient text carved into the stone, worn smooth by centuries but still readable in the blood moon light streaming through the windows. Text I'd seen before but never understood. Until now. The prophecy. The real prophecy. The part everyone had missed. My eyes widened. Ice flooded my veins. I knew how to end this. Stop! I screamed. I know what the prophecy really means. Everything froze. Bryn mid-lunge, Cassian mid-strike. The elders half risen from their thrones. Even the wounded guards stopped moving. Every eye in the chamber turned to me. The human girl. The forbidden queen. The catalyst for all of this. I stood at the blood moon altar, my hand bleeding where I'd grabbed the blade wrong, extended toward them. It's not about curing poison, I said, my voice ringing through the chamber. It's about choice. Chapter 4. My palm was already bleeding from where I'd grabbed the blade wrong. I didn't think. Didn't hesitate. Just pressed my hand flat against the altar stone. Ancient magic exploded through the chamber like lightning seeking ground. The world went white, then gold, then silver. Colors that didn't have names, light that felt solid, sound that looked like crystallized music. Everyone froze mid-motion. Bryn suspended mid-lunge, her massive wolf form caught in the air like a photograph. The guards frozen with weapons raised. The elders half standing from their thrones, mouths open in shock. Only Cassian and I could move. Only we could see what the blood moon was showing us. The prophecy revealed itself through magical projection, images and words appearing in the air like smoke taking shape. I saw it all, 1,000 years of history, of choices made and unmade, of kingdoms slowly dying because they chose fear over change. Every century, the blood moon offered werewolves a test, a chance, a choice. Choose tradition and purity, or choose love and transformation. For 1,000 years, they chose tradition, kept the bloodlines pure, kept humans separate, kept the old ways alive even as those ways strangled them. And with each choice, the kingdoms grew weaker, smaller, more isolated, dying by inches because they refused to change. Until now. The magic showed me what would happen if we completed the bond. The poison would burn from Cassian's blood. The kingdoms would heal. But werewolf law would change forever. Humans and werewolves could bond, marry, build families together. The walls between species would crumble. Tradition would shatter. And then it showed me what would happen if we rejected it. Cassian would die within 5 years. The kingdoms would continue their slow decline. Everything would stay the same until there was nothing left to save. No! Bryn's voice cut through the vision, raw with fury. Even frozen, she could speak. No! You can't! Cassian, choose your people! Choose tradition! Not this human girl who's been here for 3 days! The magic released us from the vision. Time resumed its normal flow, but slower, weighted with significance. Bryn landed on all fours, snarling. The guards steadied themselves. The chamber held its breath. Cassian looked at me. I was bleeding, terrified, still wearing a nightgown because we'd been dragged from bed to this emergency meeting. I must have looked ridiculous, pathetic. Everything a queen shouldn't be. But I met his eyes and mouthed the words, "It's okay. Choose your kingdom." He smiled, sad and beautiful and certain. Then he stepped forward and took my bleeding hand in his. "I choose her," he said clearly, his voice ringing through the chamber. "I choose love. I choose change. I choose us." The bond ignited. Silver fire exploded from our joined hands, racing up our arms, through our chests, wrapping around us like chains made of starlight. When they say, soul bond, they're not kidding. I felt everything. His heartbeat, frantic and strong. His fear, wild and overwhelming. His love, new and fierce and absolutely certain. It was like being turned inside out and finding out you were always meant to fit together this way. Like puzzle pieces that had been separated for lifetimes finally clicking into place. The poison burned out of Cassian's blood. I could see it. Black smoke rising from his skin, dissolving in the silver fire, leaving him clean and whole. He gasped, dropping to his knees, and I went down with him, our hands still locked together. Then the magic turned on me. Pain exploded through every nerve. My bones felt like they were breaking and reforming. My skin burned. My teeth ached. I screamed, and Cassian tried to pull away, tried to break the bond to save me, but the magic wouldn't let him. "What's happening to her?" he roared at the elders. Corvina stood, her face illuminated by the silver fire. She was smiling. "She's transforming, becoming something new." My back arched. Something was moving under my skin, reshaping me from the inside out. Not into a full wolf, I could feel that much. Something different. Something in between. When the pain finally stopped, I collapsed against Cassian, gasping for air. He held me tight, his hands shaking. Look at your hands, he whispered. I raised them, watched as claws extended from my fingertips, sharp, deadly, real, then retracted back into human nails. Extended, retracted, under my control. What am I? My voice came out wrong, deeper, with an edge that hadn't been there before. You're the first of a new bloodline, Corvina said. She approached the altar, her pale eyes gleaming. Human with werewolf abilities, a bridge between species, the future. Fear and wonder warred in my chest. I looked at Cassian, desperate for reassurance. You're mine, he said firmly. You're perfect. You're the future. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my lips. And you're going to be an incredible queen. A snarl reminded us we weren't alone. Bryn had shifted back to human form, naked and furious, her eyes blazing with hatred. You've doomed them. Tradition kept you strong. This change will destroy everything. The ancient magic that had frozen the chamber earlier stirred again. This time, it focused on Bryn. Images appeared in the air around her, her crimes laid bare for everyone to see. Murdering the king and queen, poisoning Cassian, manipulating Hadrian. Decades of planning, scheming, killing. Guilty. The magic's judgment was absolute. Bryn screamed as her wolf was torn away. I felt it happen, felt something essential ripped from her soul, leaving her hollow and broken. She collapsed, gasping, fully human now, permanently. No, she sobbed. No, please, not this. Anything but this. Exile, Corvina pronounced. Stripped of your wolf, your title, your place in these kingdoms. You will live as the humans you despised, alone. Guards dragged Bryn away. She was screaming, crying, clawing at the floor. You've doomed them all! This is the end of everything pure! Cassian watched her go, his face unreadable. No, he said quietly. Fear kept us weak. This makes us strong. Part of me pitied her. Part of me wanted to punch her. Mostly, I was just exhausted. 6 months later, I stood on the fortress balcony watching festival lights bloom across the valley below. 6 months. It felt like 6 years and 6 seconds all at once. The kingdoms were changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. Human werewolf councils had been established. Trade routes opened. Schools built where children of both species learned together. Some traditionalists left, unable to accept the new world. Most stayed and adapted, grudgingly at first, then with growing enthusiasm as they saw the benefits. I'd become the queen I never imagined being, fierce when I needed to be, compassionate when possible, building bridges between species, mediating disputes, learning politics and diplomacy, and how to speak 5 different languages, because apparently that was part of the job description. Cassian was beside me through all of it, my partner in every sense. We fought sometimes, passionate, explosive arguments about policy and protocol and whose turn it was to deal with the council. But we always came back together. Stronger, surer. Hadrian spent his remaining years atoning. He stepped down from the council but stayed as an advisor on integration, using his connections to smooth the transition. I forgave him before Cassian did. Maybe because my father had lived. Maybe because I understood desperation. Eventually, Cassian forgave him too. On his deathbed, Hadrian held both our hands and whispered, "I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry you found each other. He saved your life," I'd said to Cassian after the funeral. "He manipulated yours. I got you out of it, so I'm counting it as a win." Now, 1 year to the day after our wedding, we stood together on the balcony. Festival lights danced below, humans and werewolves celebrating the anniversary of the blood moon union. Music drifted up, laughter, the sounds of a kingdom healing. "Do you regret it?" Cassian asked quietly. Any of it? I considered the question honestly. Sometimes I miss the simplicity. The bookshop, the quiet, not having hundreds of people depending on my decisions. I leaned against his shoulder. But I don't regret anything. You're not a stranger anymore. You're my best friend, my partner, my home. He turned me to face him, his hands cupping my face with infinite gentleness. I love you. Not because of prophecy or bonds or magic. Just you. Lorelei Ashford, the girl who threw a ceremonial blade at my head and changed the world. I have excellent aim. You have terrible aim. I caught it out of pure self-preservation. I laughed, and he kissed me in the falling snow. Peaceful, perfect. Everything I never knew I wanted. Beautiful ending. Satisfying. Complete. Except. In the shadows beneath the balcony, a hooded figure watched. Corvina pulled back her hood, her ancient eyes gleaming in the darkness. She smiled. Not the cold smile from the council chamber, but something warmer. Knowing. Phase 1, complete. She whispered to the night. Bloodlines are open, the barriers are broken. Now we can begin the real work. She pulled a scroll from her robes. Ancient parchment covered in prophecies, predictions, possibilities. Most were crossed out. Fulfilled? Done. But one remained, circled in red ink that looked suspiciously like blood. The hybrid heir. Corvina's eyes glowed gold. Not amber, not wolf gold. Something older. Something that had been waiting for 1,000 years. Welcome to the new world, little queen, she murmured. Your part in this story has only just begun. She vanished into darkness, taking the scroll with her. And in Lorelei and Cassian's chamber, neither of them noticed the shadow that briefly darkened their window. Neither felt the ancient magic marking them, settling into their bones like a promise. Neither knew that their greatest trial was still to come. But that's a story for another time. So what did we learn? Love transforms. Choice matters. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones with fangs. They're the ones who smile at you across the breakfast table. Cassian and Lorelei were pawns who became players, victims who became victors. They took a game designed to destroy them and rewrote the rules entirely. And the best revenge against those who tried to destroy you? Thrive. Build something beautiful from the ashes. Prove that their worst fear, change, love, transformation, was actually the greatest strength all along. This was Alpha's Forbidden Love, the story of how a girl from a dying bookshop became queen of the supernatural. How a poisoned king chose love over tradition. How two people who were meant to die together decided to live instead. Your happy ending might be someone else's forbidden beginning. Your love might break traditions that desperately need breaking. Your choice might change kingdoms. Embrace it anyway. But this story? This is just the beginning. If you want to see what Corvina has planned, if you need to know about the hybrid heir, if you're not ready to leave Lorelei and Cassian behind, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that, like if this story grabbed you by the throat and didn't let go. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you saw that twist coming, because I need to know I'm not the only one whose heart is racing. This is only the first book. The prophecies are just beginning. Don't leave me to face what comes next alone. Subscribe. Stay with me. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes, together.